Hello, I'm just waiting for some people to join. Okay, not sure of, oh, I'm waiting for people to join. Oh, hiya! Okay, so, I'm just waiting for a few more people to join, but I'm not sure. Oh, perfect. Okay, hi, so my name's Daisy and I'm here, hiya, here to do a bit of lesson today on Instagram. I teach in the UK. I teach at a language school, and I also teach on Skype. So I'm based in Suffolk in the UK, if any of you know England at all. Hello, those of you who are just joining, thank you for joining. And so today we're looking at a subject called inversion, which sounds confusing. I'm just getting my notes organised. But we use it a lot in different ways in English. Some fairly straightforward and some sound a little bit more confusing, but then it's not confusing, it just sounds it when you hear it. Okay, so what inversion means is basically just turning your normal, instead of having your normal subject verb structure, we just swap it around and have the verb and then the subject. Okay, so it's just swapping the two things around from your normal structure. So I'm going to do a little bit of talking about that today. Hopefully it will be more clearer by the end of the session. If anyone has any questions, just feel free to ask. It doesn't have to be on the subject, it can be about anything, and I will try to answer it for you. And also, if I'm speaking too quietly or too quickly, then please just pop a message up and let me know. Or if you need me to repeat anything again, just let me know. Okay? And I will try and make it as clear as possible. Alright, so I'll explain the different ways in which we use inversion. I'll start with the one that you probably will know. And I'll just go through it quite quickly because I'm sure that a lot of you already know that we use inversion when we're making question forms. Okay, so normally if you make a statement, for example, you would say, you are a teacher. And then if you're asking it as a question, you swap. So inversion just means swapping the subject and the verb around. Okay, so you are a teacher, statement. And then if you're asking it a question, it's, are you a teacher? Okay. You are going. Are you going? Question. Okay, so that's what you probably learn when you're learning English and you're learning question forms. You find out about this and you find that you swap the subject and the verb around, and that is all inversion is. So it has a name that sounds confusing, but that is the basics. Okay, that's what we mean when we say inversion. So we use it for question forms, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard, what a lot of you know. So if we said we have gone to the party, the question would be, have we gone to the party? Okay. He was here is the question, is the statement. Was he here is the question. Okay, so question forms are one way of using inversion. Sorry, too hot in my house. We have, excuse me, we have a log burner going, and I'm sitting upstairs, and my house has what we call a mezzanine level. So if you see down there, my sitting room is just below, and there's no section, so all the heat comes up and it gets very hot. It's like a sauna in the upstairs. Okay, so I'm going to type that bit off, type that up for you. So question form inversion is the simple one, just swapping over the subject and the verb. So question form would be, are you a teacher, for example. Whereas normally you would say, you are a teacher. So you're just saying, you're putting the verb and then the subject. Okay, so that's the first thing. So hopefully that makes it a bit clear. When I'm saying inversion, I'm not talking about anything crazy. I'm just talking about swapping the verb and the subject. But we use it in other ways as well. So the ones which sound more confusing and could be, yeah, if you heard this used in English, it's a bit more formal, and we use it in different ways. It's quite a formal way of speaking, and we use it for different things. So we use it with different words for different reasons. Okay, so for example, if you said something like, never have I been so offended. Okay, so if we're talking about something that happens very rarely or not very often, we might say never or rarely or seldom. Okay, and we'd use these words, and you can put them at the beginning of the sentence and then use inversion after them. So again, swapping the subject and the verb. And it emphasises the fact that you think this is a very quite shocking, quite surprising. It doesn't happen. It's a very rare occurrence. Okay, so there are different words that we use with this type of inversion to give different for different situations. So, for example, if you said never, you would say never have I been so offended. Okay, so there you're using inversion. You're swapping it round. Never have I been. Okay, whereas a more common way or a less emphatic way of saying it would be I have never been. So offended. Do you all know what offended means? So if you're offended, if you're offended, you take offence to something. You don't like what somebody has said. What somebody has said has upset you. Okay, so using the first one is the first one just adds emphasis. It's just a stronger way of saying it. It's almost like you're shocked. Well, never have I been so offended. You sound. I don't think I would personally use this. My mum might use this, but it's a bit more formal. Okay, and you can do the same with words such as rarely or seldom. Seldom. Okay, you can use these words as well. So you could say, okay, for example, rarely will you taste anything so delicious, for example. Excuse me, I'm swearing there as well, English slang for you. Sorry. Rarely will you taste anything so delicious, for example. Okay? So that means that you think this thing is so delicious, it's quite rare. You know, it's something really, really, really delicious, really good. And you're saying that you're not going to taste anything like that very soon again. Okay? And you could use seldom in the same way. Okay? So it doesn't have to be a negative. So the first one I said, I have never have I been so offended. That's obviously quite negative because you're saying this person has offended you more than anybody else. But it doesn't have to be just used for negative things. So it can be used for something that is so amazing or so wonderful that you think this is a rare occurrence, something that won't happen too often. Okay? So the other ones we have are words like hardly, barely, seldom, and scarcely. Okay? And you can use those as well. You can use these words to show that things have happened quickly. Sorry, my phone is going to fall off here again. I've chosen the wrong books again. Ah, they're terrible. Okay. I don't know why it won't stand up today. So, for example, you could say, you could use no sooner, for example. So, no sooner had I started watching the film than the phone rang. So if you use this, this would show that two things had happened very quickly in succession, so one after the other. Okay, so or yeah, just two events very close together. So if you said no sooner, so I've written myself sentences to remind me, because I can never think of a sentence straight away when I'm trying to think of one. No sooner had the film started, no sooner the film started when the phone rang. The phone. So this is to suggest that two things happen very quickly in succession. When I say in succession, I mean one after the other, very quickly. Sorry, I paused you there. To say that two things happen very quickly, one and then the other. So it's like saying, I started watching the film, I turned the film on, and then immediately the phone rang. Okay? That's all it means. That's it. That's all it means. And you could say, hardly had I started watching the film when the phone rang. Again, this is a bit too formal. It's not commonly used. No sooner would be used, but hardly in that sense we wouldn't use very often. So try not to worry too much about them. Excuse me. Oh, I'm having phone troubles again this week. That's it. Okay, I'll try not to touch it. Okay. And you can also use ones such as to show that you've understood the importance of understanding something. So, for example, we use only quite often for this one. So, only when I realised what had happened. So it's like saying that you hadn't realised what the situation was, and only when you realised what the situation was, you did something about it, for example. So you could say, let me see, only so, for example, if you said, only then did I realise, so you found some information, you didn't really know what was going on, somebody gave you some information, and only then did you realise what had happened. Okay? So it's to say that only at that point that you realise something. So you could say, I only realised when I found out. It would be a normal way. But if you're emphasising it, again, putting emphasis on this sentence, only then did I realise. So only when I had been told did I realise that the situation was whatever the situation was. Okay, so once you'd been given that important information. Again, it just adds emphasis. It just makes the sentence a bit stronger and it's a bit more formal. Another example would be using little, and this is quite okay. This one I think people use almost in a funny sense sometimes. They say, little did you know. So if we mean little did you know, it means you didn't have enough information about something. So for example, it was my friend's birthday and she booked a restaurant for all her friends to go for dinner, but little did she know that they had already organised her birthday party. So it's like she didn't have the information. Little did she know. Okay, and that's kind of a bit like an expression, and it is an example of inversion, but it's like an expression that people say, little did you know, to say that you didn't know enough information and so you didn't realise something. So this basically means you didn't realise, you didn't know, you didn't have the information. Okay, so it's like a surprise or something that you weren't sure about. Okay, but people often say it, and that this one is something that people say in England. They say, "Aha! Little did you know," and it means like you didn't really realise, you didn't know something. So it's just people. You might hear people saying it just that bit, not "little did you know" and carry on. They just say "little did you know," meaning you didn't have all the information. Okay, and then another way we can use it is if we use it with so and an adjective. Okay, so for example, so brilliant was the film that I saw it twice. Okay, so again, adding emphasis to say, instead of saying the film was so brilliant that I saw it twice, you say so brilliant was the film that I saw it twice. So you have so with your adjective and then that. So I'd say so okay, and again it adds emphasis. So it's the same. The normal sentence would be, the film was so brilliant. Whoop. Thus I heard it. Thus I saw it twice. Okay. Has anyone got any questions so far? I'm not sure how many people we have tonight. But does anyone have any questions? Is this making sense? No? Just no? Before I carry on. So, has anyone seen any good films recently? There's a Christmas film out in England that I might go and see. It's supposed to be good. Has anyone seen any good films? Any films that are so brilliant you see them twice? They have to be really good for that, don't they? Especially if you're going to the cinema. I don't mind watching repeats at Christmas, but not the cinema. Okay, and then so if everyone's happy, I'll carry on and I'll give you the last example I have of using this inversion. Then I will talk about something a bit different. So the other time you can use inversion is for conditional sentences, which I think we talked about a couple of weeks ago briefly. So you all know a conditional sentence. For example, a normal conditional sentence, you would say, if I had known it was a terrible film, for example. I wouldn't have gone. That's your normal conditional sentence, okay? Normal conditional. If I had known it was a terrible film, I wouldn't have gone. Okay, so saying this is this is a third condition. I'm using this for an example, and it means that you didn't realise how bad the film was in the past, and if you had known in the past, you wouldn't have gone. But you didn't know, so you did go. It's like the hypothetical third conditional where we can't go back and change it. But what you can do is, instead of using if, you can say had I known, and it means the same. It's just a bit more formal, a bit more, yeah, more formal, that's all. So had I known it was a terrible film, I wouldn't have gone. Okay, that means the same. So all you're doing is saying, instead you're just replacing if and swapping had I. So instead of saying if I had known, you're saying had I known, and it means the same thing. The sentence has the same meaning. It's just a more formal way of saying it. Okay, so all of these the examples I've given you, I'm just checking I haven't forgotten any of my examples because I wrote down all these. Yes, it's called inversion, and it sounds strange. So I always say to my students that not to worry too much about this type of language when you're speaking, because it is quite a difficult thing to understand or to use properly if you're not used to it. And to be honest, it's really quite formal, and not a lot of people use it in day-to-day English. I mean, I might occasionally you might hear someone saying, "Oh, had I realised," or "had I known," in this kind of expression. And again, like I said, they might say, "Oh, little did you know," and it's just an expression. But a lot of it is quite formal. But it's good to understand and to realise that we use it, because when you hear it, then you will realise what they mean. So I often say, even if you don't want to use it when you're speaking, it's not a problem, because your English will be perfectly good without using these structures. Your speaking will be fine. It's not an essential thing for you to use, but it's useful to understand that we use it, and if you see it written or if you hear it, that you then understand it. So you just understand that it has the same meaning as a normal structure. They've just turned it around, other than the question forms, which are question forms. But if you hear things like, so if you hear, I'll give you a list. I could type. So yeah, no, I think I've written them all up. So we have like hardly, never, seldom, only, then. Oh, not only. That was one I didn't do. Sorry. So, what was the example I wrote earlier? Ah, yes, that was it. Not only. Do I like chocolate, or do I love chocolate? But I also love cake. Okay, so this is not only this, but also that. So it's like to say two things, this thing and another thing. And the normal way of saying this would be saying, I love chocolate and I also love cake. That's not, I love chocolate, but I also love cake. And I do. I love chocolate and cake. Who doesn't love chocolate and cake? Actually, I had a girl in my class once from Italy, and she didn't like cake. Which was very confusing for me. There we go. So that would be the same meaning. So if you're being formal, you'd say, not only do I love chocolate, but I also love cake. If you're being normal, you just say, I love chocolate, but I also love cake. Okay, so yeah, inversion sounds confusing. It's not that confusing, but it's a good idea to understand that it happens and that people do use it occasionally, and so that you understand the meaning. You don't like chocolate? Oh my goodness, really? What, any chocolate? Oh, okay. Do you like cake? Do you like biscuits? You must like cake. Or are you? Some people say they don't like. Some people don't like sweet things, do you? We have an expression in England, which I have this problem. If you like sweet things, if you like chocolate and cake and things like that, we say, "I have a sweet tooth," and I have a sweet tooth. Means I like sweet things. I like to eat sweet things. So if you hear somebody saying, I have a sweet tooth. You love cakes? Okay, that's good. As long as you like cake. What's your favourite cake? Do you have a favourite cake? If I don't have chocolate cake, I like... See, I love chocolate brownies. I really like chocolate brownies. But I love carrot cake. And I also like coffee cake. They are pretty high up. Or a Victoria sponge with fresh cream. Oh, very nice. Very nice. Just like cake. I have to do lots of running because I like cake too much. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on inversion? Before, I was going to talk about something else. Apart from I've lost my piece of paper. Oh, no, I haven't. Okay, I've got it then. Does anyone have any questions about inversion or cakes? Oh, cakes with fruit. Ah, so do you like, is it like, do you like it with dry fruit or with fresh fruit? So we have like the English Christmas cake is dried fruit, you know, like raisins and sultanas and orange peel and things like this, like a dark kind of cake. Do you like that kind? Or do you like ones with fresh fruit like strawberries and cream and lovely things like that? Yeah. I've got to do something about a Christmas cake. My dad normally makes our Christmas cake. My dad is in Australia, so we don't have a Christmas cake this year. It's a sad day. I'm going to have to buy one because I've left it too late. Because in England, people make Christmas cakes a long time before Christmas, and then they pour lots of brandy over it every week to make it really rich and alcoholic. Ah, you're welcome. No problem. You're welcome. Okay, right. So I was going to tell you a few phrasal verbs because I thought that that might be handy for you. So phrasal verbs, I said that every week I'll try and teach a few phrasal verbs, and so I'm going to carry on. So phrasal verbs are the verb with a preposition, and we use them all the time, and they drive all my students crazy because they have different meanings. And it makes things very confusing. It's like learning a whole new load of vocabulary. So if you can try and learn a few every week, then it's good. All right. So one thing that I think most students get confused is when we talk about go back or come back. And I don't know if I've explained this here before, but I'm going to tell you again if I have, but I'm not sure because I explain it so many times to so many students because it always gets confusing. So I'm going to tell you again if I told you before. If I told you before, I'm sorry. So when we use go back, we say we go back to the place that we were. Okay? So, and then you come back to the place where you are. Okay? So, for example, I was on holiday in Australia last year with my brother, because my brother lives there, and I'm going to go back next year, okay? Because I'm here now, so next year I'm going to go back to Australia. It means return to the place you were, okay? And this, so go back is return to the place you were. Okay, so for example, I went to Australia last year and I will go back next year. And I will go back next year. Okay? And then we say come back is to return to the place that you are in. Okay? Okay? So I go on holiday next week and I come back in January. For example, I'm not going on holiday. I'd like to go on holiday, but I'm not. I'm going on holiday. Week. That'd be nice to go on holiday next week and come back on the 2nd of January. That's just an example. So I come back to my home. Okay, return to her. Alright, so go back and come back. It's always being confused. So I'm often shouting, come back, to my daughter, because she runs away. She's very fast. I don't know how she's so fast when she's only 4, but she runs very fast, and I say, come back here, come back. So she was with me, and then she ran away, and I say, come back, okay, because I want her to return to where I am, to the place she should be, okay. So when you're in the place, you say you're going to go, but you're going to come back, okay. So my students, I always say to my students, you're going to, when you finish in England, you're going to go back home, but you might come back to England another time, like you might return to the same place. Okay, another one that we use regularly and can be used in different ways is pick up. Okay, so like pick something up is just to lift, okay. So I've just picked up my water. I'm going to drink it. Okay, so you pick up an object. And you can also pick a person up, but so you can pick a person up, meaning you can lift them if you want to, if you're strong. So I can pick my daughter up, that's like lifting, okay. But you can also say to your friend, I will pick you up at 8 o'clock. And your friend probably isn't expecting you to go and lift them at 8 o'clock, but they are, sorry, my holy jumper, I just realised. You're going to collect them in your car, okay? So you can pick someone up, and that would mean to collect them in your car, to drive them somewhere. Or give them a lift somewhere. That's confusing, isn't it? Pick them up and give them a lift. So it sounds like the same thing. So it means to collect them in your car. Or collect them, not necessarily in your car, collect them from a place. It doesn't have to be... but often in a car. So I say I pick my daughter up from school, but I go by bike, so I still pick her up. Okay, so I could say I pick my daughter up from school Okay, so that's what it means. It means to just go and meet someone, collect someone. So if you're going out for the night and you're going with your friends, you might go and pick them up on the way to town, okay, to collect them. But you can also pick up a new skill or a new language, for example, and it means to learn this thing, but it's almost like to learn without less tuition. More like if you go to another country, you will pick up the language. It means you'll just learn as you go. You'll learn it as you are living there. Okay, maybe you don't necessarily go for lessons. You'll just pick it up. It means you just learn easily in a natural way. When you start a new job, maybe you don't know how to do the job completely, but you pick it up as you go. Like as you learn the job, you pick up the new skills. So you can see how phrasal verbs can be confusing. So you've got pick up there, and you've got 3 different meanings, which is confusing. And then I mentioned, so you've got pick up as in lift, pick someone up as in to take them somewhere, collect them from somewhere, take them somewhere. And then you've got to pick up a new skill or a new language. This is like to learn something as you go. Okay. So I also said, if you say you're going to pick someone up and give someone a lift, that's an expression. It's not a phrasal verb. But if you say I'm going to give someone a lift, it means you're going to take them somewhere in your car. So just as I am explaining picking someone up and lifting. So that means to take them somewhere in your car. Okay, so you could say, I will pick you up at 8 o'clock and give you a lift to school, for example. So if you didn't know what these phrasal verbs meant, you might think that somebody was going to come over and pick you up and then carry you to school in their arms, which would be a bit confusing. So it's good to know these things. Okay. So if we are then, if you pick someone up from school, then when you take them to school, when you take them somewhere and leave them somewhere, then you drop them off. Okay, so to drop someone off, it means to leave someone somewhere. Take someone to a place and then leave them. Okay. So I would say I dropped my daughter off at school in the morning. So I take her and I leave her there. Okay. So drop off and pick up. And also, if you drop off, it can also mean fall asleep. It can also mean fall asleep. So again, 2 meanings for that one. Okay. So just some expressions, funny things that we say in English that are helpful to know. Okay, anyone got any questions? I don't think there are many people here now, but if anyone has a question, anything you want to know about phrasal verbs or inversion or anything else, English. If not, I will give you one more phrasal verb. Okay, so you can say, oh, you're welcome. Okay, I didn't know if does anybody have any questions? I don't know if there's anyone here. Okay, if there are no questions and nobody here, I will say goodbye. Oh.